Okay, so now is it the condition of the world that world is turning towards war kind of situation? Okay, if I am happy, then I hate war. If I am happy in my life, means I am hale and healthy, and then I am earning good money per month or per day or per year, whatever fashion. I have a very stable family, and then whatever I need, I am able to buy from the market. Everywhere I am happy. Would I go into the war kind of situation? Certainly not. But today, world is transforming into war. This proves that someone is not happy. Everywhere war is going on. War between Congo and Rwanda. Earlier, there was a war kind of situation between Egypt and Ethiopia. Kosovo and I believe Serbia and Kosovo. Then India and Pakistan, 4 days war happened, and that was a very fierce war happened between India and Pakistan for 4 days. Anyway, there was a 12 days war between Iran and Israel. There is a 1.5 year war between Hamas and Israel, Houthi and Israel, Houthi with the Yemeni government. That war is again going on. There war kind of situation between China and China and I forgot ROC Republic of China between PRC and ROC Taiwan. There is also war kind of situation. War is literally going on for 3 years between Russia and Ukraine. When United States attacked on the Iran, it was a kind of war kind of situation. Everywhere war, 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 war. At least in my lifetime, I have never seen this much war situation. This is what right now going on. Anyway, we are talking about NATO country increasing their defense budget. This is coming as a big news nowadays. NATO country, 32 countries are in NATO, and 32 countries are in BRICS nation also. There is a BRICS nation led by Russia and China. There are 32 countries, and there is a NATO. More or less, it is led by Belgium. This is what it's called because its head office is in Belgium, Brussels. That is the NATO. So NATO, North Atlantic, not America, NATO, North America, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO countries, in which Canada and United States comes from the America continent, and otherwise all 30 are from the European. Turkey is also member of NATO, and then United Kingdom is also member of NATO. Poland is also member of NATO. Spain is also member of NATO. Only thing is that Ukraine has been trying to become member of NATO, but it is not a member of NATO. Israel is not member of NATO. Okay, now the news is that is surfacing now that NATO countries they have now there will be alliance meeting now. I believe it will happen in Hague. Hague. I believe Hague is in Belgium itself or in Netherlands somewhere. Netherlands or Belgium. Hague is a town or city. There, these 32 alliance countries they are scheduled to meet now in 2025 itself, and there they are going to bring a proposal where they will increase their budget from 2% to 5%. What is 2%? 2% means every country they contribute some money to the NATO. NATO is an organization which has military power. It fight for the 32 countries. If anyone try to attack on any of these countries, from Canada to United States to the European Union, any of these countries, anyone trying to attack on, NATO has a set of army. That army, then it is responsible to attack on that particular entity. For that to army to come up and there is expenditure on this army. And these 32 countries, they spend from their country budget. Typically, they call it percentage from their GDP. From the GDP, whatever they are producing in their country, that is called GDP. There are two things that comes in any country's expenditure, any country's income. What is GDP? How much that country is making, finished goods, worth how much? And second thing is the government budget. How much government is planning to spend this year? That is called government budget. If government budget is 100 rupees, means 100 rupees government is planning to spend this year. This is not talking about the earning of the government, but how much this country people and company all together, they make a finished goods that is ready to be sold in the local market or global market. That is called GDP of the country. So everyone right now, if you see the NATO country, their contribution toward their budget of the NATO, how much United Kingdom is giving. If NATO is an organization, or NATO is an organization where 32 countries are there. In that organization, each country gives some money, and that organization with that money it makes an army called NATO army. It spends money in that army. In that NATO army, every country they have soldiers in it. So right now, the NATO country they spend 2% of their GDP on an average. Not every country spend 2% of the GDP. So in this fashion, America spends maximum because its 2% of GDP will be very high. Whereas whereas I believe Spain spends minimum. But anyway, not every country they spend 2% of GDP. Now idea is that in I believe 1900 2014 in 2014 alliance meeting, it was decided that every country would spend 2% of their GDP into NATO. Now, but Spain, it spent more or less 1.1% or 1.2% of the GDP. That's it. Which Spain is not in good condition of economy. Whereas Poland spent 4% of the GDP. Anyway, now news is surfacing that 5% of the GDP NATO countries they have now agreed to support the NATO. Now 5% of the GDP. 2.5 times more than what they are spending now. Anyway, this is the news that is now floating everywhere. 32 NATO countries now they have decided they will meet in the kind of Hague and this kind of town in Netherlands or uh, Belgium. Earlier it was same country only Netherlands and Belgium, and it was Netherlands. Okay, so now it is two different countries. Anyway, so these in the alliance now there is a proposal that is going on that every country in the NATO they will contribute 5% of their GDP into the defense. This is coming as a big news because war is at large scale right now. Till some time back, United States was bombing Iran, and then Iran was bombing Israel. Then Israel was bombing Palestine. Houthi. America has brought its Harry S. Truman warship, and it is now detonating missile on the Houthi. Then some is fighting here and there. Among this war kind of situation, rather than decreasing the budget on the NATO, so that country would focus less on the war kind of scenario, and then they will focus more on something trade or business or inter-country political relationship. NATO country they have decided to increase the budget in the war. Now question is, I have data. Question is arising that is it the war that is the future? That is under question mark. And if it is a war, then who is in the problem? Who is in the problem? And second thing is that if countries are contributing more to the war, then is the war is the future? Anyway, but I'll go through the data. There we will talk on it. Okay, so NATO countries now they have decided to increase their budget on the NATO defense budget from 2% to 5% now. So that is the news that is surfacing. There are 32 countries in the NATO. Okay, so Brussels, the new defense summit will happen, and I'm sorry, in the Hague, the new summit will happen, and their proposal will come to increase the 2% of the GDP of each country. Generally, it varies. Like Poland supports 4% of its GDP, whereas Spain supports around I believe around 1.1% of its GDP. It varies because on an average they support 2% of their GDP. Anyway, so it will increase to 5% of the GDP. Right now, whatever the 2% we talk GDP, they are spent in the called core defense section. There are two sections that they have identified: core defense, and another is called broader defense and security related. So there are two sections in the NATO now. Earlier there was one section in the NATO called core defense. Whatever the NATO was, Now they are calling it as core defense. Now there is one more defense area in NATO. Countries are attacking, and that area is called broader defense and security related. So that is another area that is coming now. Okay. So what is broader defense? One is core defense and one is broader defense. So whatever that has been spent now that comes under core defense area. So core defense area comes like troops, the military is spending on the military, their wages and other weapons and troops. Spending on them is called core sector. Right now, 2% complete going on the core sector. Now with the 5% spending, 3.5% will go in the core sector and 1.5% will go in the broader sector. In broader sector, what is broader sector? Is okay, it is like the broader sector is like making the roads, okay, adopting roads, bridges, ports. So whatever the military vehicles are using, those road, bridges, port, seaport, and these things they will also manufacture now. More or less, NATO, it looks like it is becoming a very professional organization now. This is the scenario. Okay, this is deterrent to the world now. This is intimidating to the world now. Means this much NATO is rising. Right now, NATO last year the expenditure of NATO was 2.61% because it varies. People countries they support differently as per their economic condition. Now with 2.61 that is core defense, the actual in realization it was 1.1.3 trillion dollar. It came okay, so every year more or less 1.3 trillion dollar the countries are putting into NATO. Now it will become 3.5%. That is a core defense. Core defense will increase from 1.3 trillion dollar to 1.75 trillion dollar, and then 1.5% will go in the broader section. So this is the big news that is coming now. Okay, okay. Now this is the means more or less if I see then it will come around 2.5 trillion, 1.3 trillion dollar. Right now it will go it will go around 3 trillion dollar. $3 trillion more or less, that will be the new budget for the NATO. That is going on. Now, next question is arising that first of all that world is moving toward war kind of situation. Certainly, the way daily basis new war is coming in the news looks like now every country is now tightening its belt for the war. Every country. So world is going towards war. That is looks like true. Okay, second thing is why NATO is increasing its budget. NATO is increasing its budget because of the Russia. Russia is spending 7.1% of its GDP in military. 7.1% of its GDP. Whereas China spent 1.7% of GDP. One is 7.1, another is 1.7% of the GDP. That is the one scenario. If I see the government budget, then Italy spent 3.2% of the government budget in the defense, whereas France 3.6%, 8.5% is the Poland, very high. And Russia 19% Russia spends on government budget is spends on the military. India more or less 8%, I think so, 8% to 10%. India also spends a lot in the military budget. Anyway, now answer to the question that why NATO is increasing its budget. NATO continue because mainly because of the Russia. The Russia-Ukraine war, the way going on, and the way America had started taking a kind of a stern measurement, a stern stance, the way it bombed Iran. If you hit a wall with a ball, then wall will also hit your ball, and ball will come back to you only. If America is doing attack on Iran the way it did, it was unprecedented. Means no one had imagined that America out of the way it will come and it will bomb the Iran. That is the first scenario. Second scenario is NATO hegemony. NATO control over the world is not the way it was. Other countries are also becoming powerful day by day. The trade of NATO countries that they had complete control. What complete control. Only seven countries in the world, they had 70% of the trade control, earlier called G7 countries. Only seven countries, they had 70% of the trade control of the world. That was the scenario. Okay, in trade sector, China is coming up and it has defeated everyone. So, if I say why war is scenario is coming up, someone is in trouble. These countries are in trouble now. Who were controlling the trade around the globe, they are in trouble because of the China. So war kind of situation is arising. Second condition, war kind of situation is arising. More or less, if I say that trade only, now Russia power is growing up. China power is growing up. This is being shown. Russia power is growing up. In that fashion, now Russia is trying to settle down Ukraine because Ukraine is trying to shield, put a shadow on the Russia trade everywhere. Ukraine is a country which is mastermind in sanctions on Russia, which let America and other countries place sanction on the Russia. This is Ukraine and this is Russia. If Russia is coming down, no problem. If Russia is coming up and this country is trying to shadow this country deliberately, then this country will hit this country. 100% sure. This is what is happening in Russia-Ukraine war. Russia is saying to the Ukraine, you cannot put hindrance here. I am coming up and you cannot let your people to put sanction on me. This will not work for very long. In that fashion, the rise of Russia, China, these two countries, it has taken away sleep of many countries. And the biggest country that where sleep is gone is the United States. And United States, sometimes it is helping Israel and it bomb Iran. Sometimes it make Palestinian people starve in the Gaza Strip. Sometimes it go and it support Ukraine. This country is in trouble. Okay, actually I did not read the full line. Why NATO countries are increasing their budget from 2% to 5%? I will read the full line. Okay, NATO countries expected to endorse big new defense spending in the summit in the Hague, demanded by, I'll read it again. NATO countries expected to endorse big new defense spending target, defense spending target in summit in the Hague, demanded by Donald Trump. Means American President Donald Trump is behind the NATO countries to give more to the NATO fund. Means this proves that America either America has fear from countries like Iran or country like China or country like Russia to shield itself, protect itself. They are raising their budget, or America has different intention. Main idea is America is deliberate in trying to get the number one seat again in the economy and the trade, when it is slipping from the China and Russia because of Russia and China. Now it is now asking the NATO country to increase the budget, and this is what it is happening. Okay, so in that fashion, the Ukraine would receive more money from the NATO countries now to tackle the Russia. Israel will receive more money from the NATO, not from only from the United States. I mean, NATO is going to support Israel now. That is for sure now. So NATO will, earlier America was supporting Ukraine and NATO was supporting little bit to the Ukraine. Now NATO is an organization that will support Ukraine to a high extent, and NATO will support Israel to a high extent to tackle the Iran and Palestine and Houthi, and then tackle the Russia. Okay, now question is arising that war kind of situation would prevail, then I would say yes. The Russia, I won't say that America may come directly into the war. That's why it is promoting NATO. But war kind of situation will go on. Why it will go on? Because other than the countries who were controlling the world, the countries who are not part of those countries, like NATO countries or G7 countries, these countries are coming up. If they are coming up, the balance of the world trade is changing. If it is changing, then war will happen.